We got till 5? Hello, welcome to our Facebook audience. We're here live at William Street Park for the second Coyote Creek park meeting. If you're at home, you'll see behind me that we have some boards. Those boards are available on the website. Just go to valleywater.org, look for the Coyote Creek project, and you'll be able to download and view all the boards, the agenda, and all the materials. And if you have time, come join us. The program starts at about 5 o'clock. Right now we have the open house portion where people are asking questions, looking at the boards, and just interacting. So please join us if you have time. Like I said, we're at the corner of 16th Street and William Street here in Nagley Park. Thank you. Hello, good afternoon to everyone. Welcome. We are still in the open house portion of today's meeting. We'll be starting the meeting right around 5 o'clock, but as you can see, we have a bunch of boards here, so feel free to come up and take a look at the boards before we start the presentation. Also, if you want coffee or water or snack, we have those right over at the table. In addition to that, we brought a bunch of our water conservation items for folks to take. They're free. So feel free to walk over to the next to the registration table, and we have those items for you. So we'll be starting this program at around 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our Facebook audience. So we're here at William Street Park for the second Coyote Creek park meeting. You still enough time to come down here and join us. We're at the corner of 16th Street and William Street here at the park. We're going to get started in about 10 minutes. Right now is the open house portion of the meeting. If you're interested, you can go onto the valleywater.org website and look at the boards that we have on display here, as well as the project overview map. We have the agenda, we have a project sheet there. We have all those materials there for you to just download and look at, which are the materials that we have here. So at about 5 o'clock, we'll get the program started. Thank you.
That's the new that's definitely a challenge. Right now.
and we'll get the meeting started. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's Coyote Creek meeting, the second of 3 public meetings that we're hosting to update the community on the park elements. Today, obviously, our focus is going to be on Selma Olinder Park and William Street Park. I also want to welcome our Facebook live audience watching us. If you're on, yes, if you're on Facebook, the boards that you see behind me are available on our website at valleywater.org, along with the agenda, as well as the project sheet, the FAQ. All the materials that we have here are available for you to download. And also for our audience, we're recording the meeting, which will be available on the website as well, so that if you care to share it with your neighbors that aren't here today, that will be available for you. But before I go any further, I want our 2 interpreters to introduce themselves. Should anyone need interpretation, can we please have, here we go. Thank you.
Good evening and xin chào tất cả các quý vị tới tham dự cuộc hội thảo ngày hôm nay. Tôi tên là Tiffany và tôi là thông dịch viên người Việt. Và nếu mà các quý vị ngồi đây ai cần thông dịch tiếng Việt Nam xin giơ tay, chúng tôi sẽ phát cái máy cho các quý vị để quý vị có thể nghe được cái cuộc họp ngày hôm nay muốn nói là gì. Cảm ơn quý vị rất là nhiều. Quý vị có thể tới cái bàn cuối ở phía bên kia. Có cô đang giơ tay lên để mà lấy cái máy. Cảm ơn quý vị rất là nhiều. Thank you so much.
Buenas tardes a todos, mi nombre es Manny y estamos aquí para interpretar en español. Si necesitan aparatos de interpretación, por favor vayan atrás y cualquier pregunta que tengan, estaremos aquí para servirles. Gracias.
Thank you. If you've not picked up an agenda, we have agendas right at the sign-in table along with the project sheet. So those materials are there for you. And then we're scheduled to go till 6:30. There's also a survey and a comment card that was handed out, so that if your question isn't answered or you rather write down your question, you can write it down on the form, and staff will follow up with you and address your question as well. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Director Barbara Keegan, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jose, for the introduction. And my name is Barbara Keegan, and I'm very proud to represent this neighborhood and this park. Hello? Testing? Testing? Maybe I was really, really close. This is working now? Okay, so again, my name is Barbara Keegan, and I'm very proud to represent District 2, which represents this neighborhood where this park is located. And welcome very much to all the participants that are joining us today. It's great. I'm thinking there's probably about 60 people here. So thank you for taking time out of your busy days to show up here. And for our Facebook Live audience, please submit your questions for staff to address so that we make sure that we hear from you as well as the people that are here in person. Also, thank you to others that are joining us. I know that Patricia Ceja from the Office of Councilmember Perales is attending tonight. Welcome, Patricia. And we also have City of San Jose staff. San Jose has been a great partner in this project with our respective staffs communicating and discussing project details. So they've been terrific. Today, we really want to get your input as well as answering your questions about the park elements related to the preferred alternative for this reach of Coyote Creek. Now remember, we are in the early stages of the design process, and there's going to be many more opportunities for you to provide your input. This winter, we're going to host meetings specific to the 3 communities where the channel improvement work will occur, so be on the lookout for those meeting details. For every flood protection project, water infrastructure improvement, or stream stewardship project that Valley Water commits to buildings, we have to, it's essential, engage our community in conversations to learn what they like or don't like. I'm a civil engineer. I've delivered a lot of projects, and one lesson I learned a long time ago is nobody knows a neighborhood better than the people that live in that neighborhood. And so your input and insights are really critical. We want to build projects that reflect the values of the community they are in and for the project to serve them as intended. In this case, we want to reduce the risk of flooding. But in addition to that, we want to make sure that we provide something that fits in with the community and is something of beauty as well as something of function. And parks and open spaces help make our neighborhoods vibrant. They help connect neighbors and weave us into the fabric of the neighborhood, and that's really important. Sorry, my mask is falling down. I'm having, this is a little trickier than it looks. Okay, Valley Water is your neighbor, and we want to contribute to the vibrancy of neighborhoods through our work and our projects. Completing the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project and Coyote Creek Flood Management Measures Project are critical to the safety of this community, so we must keep these projects moving forward. Collaborating with residents, business owners, and community leaders is a critically important piece of how we will make this flood risk reduction project happen. We appreciate those of you who have attended these meetings in the past and provided input, and we look forward to having those of you who've participated before, as well as those who maybe this might be your first meeting, having you involved in every step of the project as we move forward. We are primarily talking about flood protection today, but I would be remiss if I didn't remind everyone, I think you already know this, we are in the middle of extreme drought. So we thank you for helping to conserve water and using it wisely. Visit www.watersavings.org for additional ways to save water, take advantage of rebates, or report water waste. And we actually have some giveaways up on that table, so if you need a new shower head or you need other things, those are available. And if we run out, we'll direct you to our website where you can order more stuff. And check out our beheard.valleywater.org interactive page to ask questions about the drought, this project, or other priority efforts. Again, thank you so much for taking time to come out and participate tonight. We really, really appreciate it. Okay, Jose, back to you.
Thank you very much, Director Keegan, for your comment. Again, to our Facebook audience, if you're just joining us, you can submit your questions into the chat box, and staff will relay those questions to us, and we will address your question here for you live. So to get started with the presentation, I'd like to invite our two project engineers. We have Julianne O'Brien, who will be discussing the project elements for the project. And then we have Alec Nicholas, who is the project manager, and give us a current update on the project. Welcome both. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for taking time to come out both to the park or join us via Facebook Live. So we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to focus primarily on the planned elements for this park and then Selma Olinder Park, but we'll also take other questions regarding the project as a whole. So on that note, on the far side, we have a map that's kind of the project overview, and you'll see the project goes from Montague to Tully along the creek. So that's a 9-mile stretch. We've broken it up into 5 reaches to kind of better break down the project, be able to focus on the unique characteristics of various neighborhoods and approach it to figure out which elements and how best to protect those neighbors and along the project. Then additionally, as you guys may be aware, in February of 2020, the Federal Energy Regulation Commission presented an order related to Anderson Dam. And in response to that order, we had to take about 40% of the original Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project and expedite it. And so that's what's known as the Management Measures Project. A lot of the neighbors, especially on 16th and Arroyo, are probably very familiar with that because those properties are part of that phase of the project. And the entire project will ultimately protect that 9-mile stretch from a similar flood event to the 2017 flood event. We just had to expedite portions of it because the new Anderson Tunnel will have a higher capacity of flows down Coyote Creek, and those particular areas were more vulnerable to that flooding. Then the rest of the William Street Park and Selma Olinder Park, those elements are actually in the second phase of the project. So those will be in the flood protection phase. both of which are currently in design. We are anticipating the 30% design November or December for both phases of the project. After that point, the management measures one will just kind of really accelerate on the design, with construction for that project scheduled to begin next summer, early fall, and then the remainder of the project is scheduled to begin construction in late fall of 2023. So then moving on to the second map is William Street Park. And what we've been kind of proposing since the preferred alternatives is a vegetated berm around the perimeter of the park. And what this would do is this would contain the water in the park in a flood event and protect the surrounding communities. So these homes, it's been brought up several times, you know, these homes on 16th Street, we can all see they're significantly higher. They didn't flood. However, the protection is needed still along this side because the water went down this way on 16th Street, and it went this way on William Street, and it flooded those homes, and it flooded those homes down on 16th Street. And so we won't need to protect those homes. And how we're going to do that is by keeping the water in the park. So like I said, right now the plan is for a vegetated berm around the park. Now, what is that? There's been some questions and some misconceptions on what that is. It's not going to just be a pile of dirt. It's going to be vegetated. We are looking into a couple different ways to incorporate it into the park so that it looks like it's part of the park, and it'll look like it's been here the whole time. And a couple options of how we can do that is we can just plant, have a gentle slope and just plant it with, maybe some the exact plantings haven't been decided yet, but we know they're going to be native, they're going to be drought tolerant, and so we're going to have maybe some bigger kind of shrubs on this side, and then grass and flatter on this side is one option. We can reverse it. Another thing is maybe incorporating amphitheater seating on park side, so that when you guys have your events, you've got some additional seating, you've got some space for people to hang out, just during the day at the park, or when you're having events in the park. It's incorporated into that. We can also do this on the other side and have terrace different plants and incorporate on that side. So these are some of the ideas that we are looking into, and this is where we're looking for kind of your input and what you guys might want to see as part of this proposed berm. And then access. We know that access is a big concern, and making sure that you guys, don't have to hike over a berm just to get into the park. And we are looking into a variety of ways of maintaining that access. Again, this is an opportunity for you guys to weigh in and see what you would prefer. A lot's going to come down to feasibility, preference, and then cost will definitely be a factor as well. But one thing that we're looking into is, and this is, you can see the red arrows on the map, the second map, having paths that ramp up and then back down over into the park, so that we have an accessible pathway into the park. So it would be ADA, American Disabilities Act accessible. So wheelchairs, strollers, walkers, carts for the vendors coming in to set up for your events would be able to go up and over. Another thing that we are looking into and considering is putting breaks in the berm so that there's just a flat walk space, but then we would have what's called a passive barrier installed that would come up during a flood event and seal it off and make it one continuous berm. So that's right here. So here we have a couple different renderings of what that would look like. So in this particular case, it was a sidewalk. So it would be flat, flush with the sidewalk. On your day-to-day, you're not going to know it's there. Then a flood event happens. The water will cause that barrier to rise up and seal off the opening. And there's ones that flip up, and then there's ones that just come straight up. So there's some options there. In fact, along Selma Olinder Park, this is what we're planning for the majority of that stretch. Here, we're probably going to have to do a combination of things, partially because of the alignment. There's a lot more curvature. These work best on straight shots. and just there's a cost element as well. One thing that these will need is they will have walls on kind of either side of the opening to create that flush seal. And so we can there's opportunities for us to use those walls and again incorporate them into the park, whether we turn them into like seat walls or benches. There's ways to kind of incorporate that into the park, into the design. And then those are kind of the main things for the park itself. We also wanted to kind of take this opportunity. There's been a lot of misinformation, misunderstandings in terms of the project and how to resolve it. And one of the questions is, well, won't the operation of Anderson be sufficient? Why can't we just wait until that's done? And the problem with that is that won't be sufficient. Even if we're able to operate Anderson in such a way that during a flood event we don't spill any water from Anderson, there will still be flooding in the creek, and the neighborhoods will still flood because there will be flooding from tributaries go into Coyote Creek. There will just be flooding from the local water. The channel in some areas is very narrow, so the project is still needed regardless of what happens to Anderson. Another frequently asked question that we get is, well, can we just clean up the creek? Can we clean out the creek? Can we remove everything in the creek? Would that solve the problem? And the short answer there again is no. There's a lot of again, that's not easy. There's a lot of factors that go into play there. One of which is, like trees and other like fallen trees that are in the creek. Though that can become habitat for fish and other wildlife, that if we remove that, we are being, it's detrimental to the creek. And we would have to, and anytime we do any work inside the creek channel itself, we have to coordinate with various regulatory agencies such as Army Corps, Fish and Wildlife, and those, coordinating with those agencies takes time. And that's also part of why, in time that we don't have due to the Anderson project, and that's part of why the elements for this project are actually all proposed to be outside the riparian corridor, so that we don't have to go inside the creek. We don't have to touch the creek. We don't have to deal with a lot of those regulatory agencies because we don't have the time. As I mentioned earlier, we have less than a year to design the management measures portion of the project, and then we're constructing that in another year. We've got a year and a half to construct that. And the flood protection project is a similar tight timetable. Another complication, as you can see from these maps, is Valley Water doesn't actually own a good portion of the creek. We own anything in this dark green color, and that's it. Everything else is, anything in the purple is a private property owner. Anything in this light green is City of San Jose. And then we have another color, I think this blue down here, that's actually County of Santa Clara. Now we can coordinate and work with those different owners to get in and do some outreach and cleanup in the creek where it is warranted. But it's not as simple as us just going out there and doing that. We have to coordinate with the regulatory agencies. We have to coordinate with the respective owners. And even if we did all of that and cleaned out everything in the creek, that still wouldn't be sufficient given the flood events that occur here. Did I miss anything? Okay. Okay. With that, I think we'll go ahead and open it up to the Q&A portion.
Yeah. So let me just share a little bit more information. Hopefully, let me squeeze over here. Okay. So Julianne did touch on the Anderson Dam project and how we need to do this project regardless of if there's any spills from Anderson Dam or not. But the other aspect is I want to touch on the schedule and why it's urgent and how it is tied to the Anderson Dam project. There's several different Anderson Dam projects. The first one is called the Anderson Dam Tunnel Project, and that was necessitated by what Julianne mentioned, the FERC order in February 2020. The tunnel project constructs a tunnel that can potentially release up to a maximum of 2,000 cubic feet per second. 1 cubic foot is about the size of 2 basketballs. So imagine 4,000 basketballs running down the creek. Plus, on top of that, the current existing Anderson Dam has an outlet structure that can release up to 500. So potentially, during a storm event, if Anderson Dam needs to release water, it will be able to release 2,500 CFS. So we need to construct the first part, which is the Coyote Creek Flood Management Measures project, by the time that Anderson Dam Tunnel project is constructed. So when that tunnel becomes operational, we have the elements in place here so we don't induce flooding in this area. Then the other aspect, which is the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project, that it also coincides with a milestone with Anderson Dam. That's the higher level tunnel completion. So when that's completed, that's going to release even more water. So we want to make sure that we don't induce flooding in this area. Actually, I should say the 9-mile reach between Montague and Tully when those two tunnels are operational. Now, to clarify also, the first elements that are constructed in the Flood Management Measures project will protect against the Anderson Dam Tunnel project, 2,000 CFS or 2,500 CFS flow, but also the 20-year storm event, which is also a little bit higher in some cases. So we don't have to come back and add on a couple inches to a wall or a berm or something that we already constructed. Now, with those milestones, the two big milestones for Anderson Dam, the Anderson Dam Tunnel project is slated to begin operation when?
So January of 2024.
So we have to complete the first Coyote Creek Flood Management Measures by essentially December 2023. So right now we're in fall 2021. We have to wrap up the design. We're starting 30%. We have to get to 100%, advertise the project, construct the project by December 2023. Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project, that coincides with the higher level tunnel, and that is slated to begin operation in fall of 2025. So we have a tight timetable. So I just wanted to share a little bit more information on how it is tied to Anderson Dam, at least in the project schedule. So with that, why don't we open it up to some questions from the audience, Jose?
Thank you both for the presentation. To our Facebook audience, you can submit your questions via the chat box, and we'll answer your question here. So I will be we'll be taking questions from here, and then questions from Facebook as well, because we're already starting to receive questions from Facebook. So raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone over to you. We're trying to limit the number of hands that touch the mic, so I will just put it up to you, and then if you can speak to it, I really appreciate it. So we have this hand here first, this lady here, the lady back there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll take some questions from Facebook at that point. Thank you.
Hi, the map second from the left shows where the berm would go on the William Street Park, and that's very clear. Can you talk a little bit more about where you'd be placing a berm on the Olinder Park?
Yes, and I apologize. We should have had that map for today. So if where are we? It will be along this roadway. There's a sidewalk here. There's an existing sidewalk, and so for that one, we are doing the passive barrier. So it will be embedded in that existing sidewalk, and it will just either pop up, either flip up or pop up during a flood event. But it will be in the location of that existing sidewalk.
What about the William Street side? That's where the water poured down last time.
You mean right here?
On the other side of the creek.
Yeah, so the passive barrier is going to be along that straight shot of road that's in front of those the townhomes that were in the UPR or SPRR tract. So then when it ties into the school there's a school there. Between the school and the park, there's going to be a flood wall that goes around the school. So the passive barrier is going to terminate at a flood wall right behind the school, and then following the perimeter of the school will be a flood wall between the park and the school.
That's really barricade the school in.
So there is going to be definitely access points that we're going to have to work with to make sure that we are not negatively impacting existing access. Our projects as a whole, not just Coyote Creek, we can't make a situation worse.
So to clarify, it's going to be on this side of the school. The wall is going to be behind the school around here. So the majority of the access to the school is going to be on this side. Sure, yeah.
That map doesn't really make it.
Yeah, and
That map is mostly just showing
Well,
for the
for the
parcels
ownership.
of the ownerships of the properties.
So I moved into this neighborhood in 2006, and I have been to at least one other previous meeting with handouts and maps and the Valley Company, the Valley Water, talking about this exact same project. And I don't understand why nothing from that project was implemented and why we're doing this again.
I don't know that it's I think this is just a continuation of the project. So we went through the planning phase. The planning phase was actually a period of a couple years, and now we are moving from planning into design. So this is just taking those plans, what we came up with in the planning stage, and further developing it to become the project. So it's not two separate projects, it's just a continuation of that same project, I believe.
Question over here.
Well, my question relates to the actual constructions of the berms. If they're vegetated, I'm assuming it's dirt, but how do you protect that dirt from being washed away and the effect that the water does come up? I mean, we all know that water is very destructive and it can be very forceful.
So the fill that will be used for the berms has to be a specific engineered type. Before it echoes, you can't just use any soil that you want. It has to be engineered soil material that can be, rated. It's what Army Corps uses for levees. What they use for the new levees that are constructed in the Midwest or along New Orleans. Those aren't just sand or soil. Those are specifically engineered gradations, specific types of soil that are carefully placed, carefully compacted, and there's different layers to it. It's not just one type of soil. So the topsoil may be used for plantings, but the soil underneath the topsoil of maybe 6 inches or 8 inches is going to be a different type. It's going to be more structural for that exact purpose.
A question over here.
Yeah, my question is about the project starting in Tally in South. And what's happened with the other area of Tally? Is any flooded conditions over there, or people don't get flooded?
Further upstream of Tully is your question?
So the portion that's defined the project, Montague to Tully, that was determined to be the project because that's where the greatest impact in the 2017 flood of storm event, same water surface if the 20-year flood event. Based on the different characteristics here versus different characteristics there, the height is going to vary. It's the same level of protection in terms of from the same storm event level. It's just different elevations, both in terms of the terrain here, then the channel, the width. Everyone's it's the same level of protection.
And just to clarify that point too, you mentioned behind the properties, right? That's closer to the creek. So the properties from the street side slope down, just like this part slopes down to the creek. So along 16th Street.
On what he's talking about, William Street, like my house, we're at 5.5 feet water.
So 17th Street.
I'm sorry, 17th Street, not 16th Street.
And the 400 block is 16th.
And the 400 block.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Not your block.
We
had water here in our backyard.
Yeah, so the ground slopes between the street and the creek. So as you get closer to the creek, you have to make that water taller because the water surface elevation is across, right? So on those properties, you can't put the wall right on the street side, because then their whole property is going to be flooded. You have to put it between the structure and the creek itself. So that's why it has to be taller there versus over here, it's shorter. Now, if we were to move it all the way to the creek, we'd have to make it more than 4 feet.
Okay. I got a second question. Please bear with me.
No problem.
How will you ensure that the city will actually maintain these berms as you're proposing? The city does not do such a good job now with the park itself. Has the City Parks and Recreation Department participated in the actual design of your berm proposal?
Yes, we've been working actually monthly with City Parks, and I'll give the microphone over to Eve Zudi from City of San Jose.
Good afternoon, everyone. Eve Zudi, Division Manager, Parks and Recreation, Neighborhood Services. As we met with the Water District years ago, we knew that flood protection had to happen in this neighborhood to protect people's homes and their interests. And we knew that the parks were a logical place for the project, but we wanted a solution that made the park better. And so we avoided walls. We don't want to lose good visibility and monitoring of this park. So we're very sensitive to that. We've been working with the Valley Water and the police department to get good guidance. And then in terms of maintenance, as we develop parks, we inform the council about the changes that are being made to a park, and we look for the resources through a budget action to bring in those resources. And we're also mindful on the landscape plan that it is a landscape that can be sustained and not add more maintenance burden than we can handle.
Wondering how that landscape maintenance is going to deal when the park is flooded, like Julianne said. That's the purpose of these berms, to flood the park. Okay, the third one I have, please. Without Anderson Dam in place for another 10 years, how will you explain it when we get another flood event? Overspilling of the dam is not associated with every flood event because of the blockages in the creek. So you can answer that later if you want. Valley Water has the authority now to remove debris and blockages from the creek because all the necessary state and federal permits have been obtained by you. This is a matter of public record. All you have to do with these agencies is to work with them. Ownership, who owns the creek, is irrelevant. When are you planning to do this in order to remove obstacles from the creek channel that block and back up water flow that causes flooding into neighborhoods? Obstacles like fallen trees, large dead limbs, invasive plant species, trash, which I don't think is a animal habitat, shopping carts, bicycles, etc. Two more.
On that question?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, I mean, I touched on that earlier. There's some of those things we cannot remove because without going through the regulatory agencies, we don't, ownership is an issue in the sense we can't just go into somebody else's property and remove stuff. Just like you can't go into your neighbor's yard and mow their grass. There's, well, some may be, some might not be. And then...
So I'd like to also invite Jen Kodian, who is Deputy Operating Officer from Valley Water for Operations and Maintenance, to also touch on your question.
Hi, so to answer your question, you're absolutely right. We do have permits to do that work in the areas that we have jurisdiction, right? So we have a 10-year programmatic permit with all of the relevant regulatory agencies. And when we basically go to the agencies and let them know what our impacts will be, we're assessing our impacts on lands that we have jurisdiction. So here, we have no jurisdiction whatsoever. So when we went to the regulatory agencies for that 10-year permit, this wasn't assessed for environmental impacts, right? That being said, we absolutely do assist other agencies when they want to do work on their lands. After the 2017 floods, we did enter into a right of entry agreement with City of San Jose, and we did go in and do woody debris removal, large woody debris, and tree removal on their properties that they had identified that were, flow conveyance issues. So we absolutely did that work, and we're always willing to help out. We just have no jurisdiction to go and decide to do it here because we don't own the land. No.
Well, okay, one more question here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. California Department of Fish and Wildlife must be concerned about the poor health of the creek. It's very poor health. I'm surprised litigation has not yet begun. Are you concerned about that?
So I think that's another follow-up question for Jen.
So I actually did meet out on site at several sites on Coyote with CDFW and the regional board a couple weeks ago, and they are concerned, as are we, as is the city, as is the county. However, there's a much bigger issue here, right? And we need to solve the crisis to be able to take back the creeks and restore them, right? And so while everyone is concerned, we do want to work together. They toured several of the sites. Here was one. We went to Tully. We went to a few sites on Guad. And they are aware of the situation, but they're also aware of the issue at hand and what we can and can't do as an agency.
After this, we'll take some questions from Facebook Live.
Thank you. California state riparian laws require landowners to have access to the creek as a corridor for boating and swimming. At the present time, this is not possible with the debris blockages. Did you know this?
That's a question? Okay.
Did you know that?
We're familiar with it, and I'm going to share it again with Jen Codian, who's the one that actually deals with the operations and maintenance of it. So let me hand it over to Jen.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. Can you repeat it?
They have access for boating and swimming to the creek.
Yeah, riparian laws require boating and swimming access to the creek by landowners. That's impossible now. There's too much blockage and trash.
So again, we're not managing this land here for boating access. So I guess I would, ask the city of San Jose to answer that since they're the landowners here. But yeah, I mean, I understand you're a riparian landowner. So am I. I don't have boating access behind my house either because there's lots of naturally fallen woody debris from the trees, which is habitat for the fish. And so the way the regulatory agencies see things are, they want to have a healthy, natural riparian environment. And so maintaining that woody debris for habitat for the fish and wildlife and protected and endangered species is their higher priority. And so the way our permits work is that really for us to get approval to do work like that, they have to see the greater good. And a lot of times they don't want to see that wood removed from the creek channel because it would be a detriment to the fish and wildlife.
Yeah, you have to be very careful when you remove stuff. That's true. That's very true. I just think that the blockages to the creek cause the flooding. That's my opinion.
Well, we have to trust the engineers that they've assessed those conditions.
We're going to take a couple questions from Facebook, and then we'll come back to the audience here. So we have a question from Jim asking the height of the berms. How tall will the berms be? And then a follow-up question is, who's going to maintain the berms?
Okay.
Very good question.
So the height of the berm here will vary. At the highest, which will be at this intersection with William Street and 16th Street, it will be 4 feet high. We actually have a mock-up here behind us of what that 4 foot high is going to look like. And
to the left, or to your right.
Yes, in both locations. And then it's going to taper to 2.5 feet as it gets closer to the creek on this side. And then I believe it doesn't go quite to 2 feet at this end, but it does taper down as it goes down 16th Street as well. No, it will stop short of, I believe the...
Are you talking about the driveway access into the park? Yeah.
That will be maintained.
That will be maintained, and that's where... No, well, yes.
There's a flood wall that's proposed in that area as well, and it's going to be tied to the flood wall. But
we're going to be incorporating this. So we're going to be incorporating this passive barrier across that driveway to lay flat. Okay, well, we can address your questions afterwards.
Okay.
Question.
Sorry, there was a second part to that Facebook. Oh, in terms of who's going to maintain it. So the city and Valley Water will enter into a joint use agreement for any elements at the park. And basically any flood protection portion of the element. So Valley Water will maintain. So we will maintain the integrity of the flood protection portion, but then aesthetics and everything else is typically City of San Jose responsibility. And those details will be defined in that agreement that we will be developing throughout the entire project.
We had a question here in the front.
Yeah, I'm one of the landowners that my property owns up to the middle of the creek. So if I wanted to engage so that people could come on the property, not to remove riparian wildlife protection, but to deal with like the mattress and box springs that are sitting on top of it, how would I do that? So how do we, as the landowners that are along the creek that do really want to protect the environment and get engaged, how do we engage with the right people in order to get some of those things taken care of?
Jen, would that be you?
So just to reiterate the question, just in case it was a bit faint, how do the private property owners engage with, who do they engage with to make sure that behind their property, in the creek themselves, that area can be potentially maintained, that you guys are providing the access? That aren't like non-riparian items. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking on private properties, so again, we don't have jurisdiction on private properties to come in and work on your land.
Right, but I was able through the planning process to grant you access to, look at the snowy owl, elevate the house, all, 6 different teams came to my property, and I was able to provide legal access to you. So how do we do that and take it to the next step so that we can get the stuff out of the city? That's all.
Now you could submit it to us. The problem, Access Valley Water is our online submittal system, and you can submit it. The problem is a lot of times on those private properties, we don't have access to get a mattress out of the creek, right?
No, physical.
Like physical access.
Physical.
And there's plenty of access from the owner side, which is owned by probably the city, because the homeless encampments have been able to put it down. I can see a path. So that's really what we want to do, is how do we come in, get the form in, and get that stuff taken
And so
care of.
we would love to collaborate with the city and do a big cleanup event throughout these reaches. In the past, we used to collaborate together and do that work. And so I think that, we're open to doing that and, obtaining certain right of entries or whatnot, but we really need to make it a combined effort because, the city has services that we don't have, like outreach support, and other necessities to really come in and make a difference. But we're happy to provide the labor, and we do operate under an agreement with the city when they have ability to schedule with us.
So just to summarize, the main point of contact would be through Access Valley Water, at least to submit the information, the request?
Yeah, but again, like in the neighborhood you're talking about where it's city owned, right? We really need them to be able to schedule the work and plan it with us for them to take action. We can't just decide to go take action on their property. So it's really about the collaboration and getting both agencies to get the work done.
So what I'd like to do is a task group with somebody who's a contact at Valley Water, somebody else who's a contact with the city, and they can work with our Navy Park board so that we can get this thing done and not just have it go into an email bin box of not knowing who to talk to or if it's even being looked at. So I think that's something that would be really beneficial for our neighborhood.
No, I know, and I get a lot of your requests, and I've also pushed a lot of your requests to the city to make everyone understand that this is a priority. And like I said, we're open to working together, and the combination of our resources is really what's necessary to take action on some of these creek reaches.
I think there was a gentleman back there.
Hello, I'm Susan Snidel, and I live over on 15th Street, and I'm head of the beautification committee of the Negley Park Neighborhood Association. We've been very interested in all of these plans. A couple of concerns that have repeatedly come up were access to the park. Even with this plan here, it looks like you come into the decorated gate and then you're faced with a 4-foot berm. And there's one little path you can go up, but it just seems very unwelcoming. Along 16th Street, you can see, how did we all get here? Through the nice level access on 16th Street. Now, I understand that the berms are different heights, but still, they're going to be 3 to 4 feet high along much of the 16th Street. We have two concerns. One is access, the other is security. And yes, somebody along here or along William Street can look from the car, from a police cruiser, and see the center of the park. But there will be areas at the base of the berms, even a 3-foot berm, where undesirable activities could take place. And we are experienced with this because this park was a real mess in the 60s and 70s. There was a juniper hedge 3 feet tall along 16th and along William Street. There were restrooms over there that the city took out because it was so crime-ridden. So the security is of prime importance. We had discussions with the San Jose Police Department officers who patrol the park. They don't have the authority to make any decisions, but they completely agreed with us that having lack of visual access at the bottom of 3 or 4 foot berms, unless they were only on one side of the park or broken up with passive barriers, could solve that problem. But this park will be, the security will be degraded by the berm concept. Third question, well...
Can we at least respond to those two first? Sorry. I'll respond to the security part if you want to take on the first aspect. I just want to reiterate the first one because...
Sure. So, you know, access is still, it's an ongoing issue on how we are going to maintain and provide access. Like I said, we presented a couple different options. Those are not set in stone by any stretch of the imagination. It's part of an ongoing conversation. We wanted to present you guys a couple options to show that we are thinking about that, we are looking into that, and trying to get your feedback in terms of what is preferred. Again, it's going to come down to a variety of factors, you know, preference and feasibility, and you know, the important thing is also maintaining the integrity of the flood control portion. So we want to make sure that we are protecting the neighbors. You know, as a reminder, that we aren't putting these in the berms in here for fun. They are to serve a purpose and to protect your neighbors from flooding. We will look into different ways to maintain and have them be incorporated and be part of the park. And we're not looking to, you know, that's part of why we're doing berms and not just big wall, you know, just flood walls that are not visually appealing and would actually be even more attractive for hiding and behind and some of these other activities that you find you know, undesirable. We understand that. We understand your concerns, and we are looking into figuring out how to meet both needs. You know, provide the very much necessary protection for your neighbors, but also keep the park functional and aesthetically pleasing and safe.
So to address the security issue as well. So we've had two different meetings with two different police captains at City of San Jose in last. Am I microphone? Maybe your microphone. We have had two different meetings with two different police captains at City of San Jose. One captain was the captain in this precinct, and the other one was I believe a special operations commander, if I'm not mistaken, right? So we shared the same concerns with them. They mentioned a couple items, and they said, one, with a patrol vehicle, first of all, most of the patrol vehicles, their direction is along William Street. So incorporating that information into our design, you know, if they're going to be patrolling going east-west on William Street, you know, we're going to see what we can do on that side, so at least it provides clear access and visual line of sight into the park from William Street. That's, you know, that's one aspect that was very informative. Go ahead.
And to chime in on that, we were only able to have this conversation with them yesterday. So this information is still very new and hasn't been incorporated specifically into the concept berms and even the map, because it is very new information. But we wanted to let you guys, it was imperative to us to have that meeting with them before today's meeting so that we could speak to it and let you guys know that we are incorporating, you know, discussing it with these relevant contributors, stakeholders.
And they shared the same item that you just shared as well, where you don't want to have a vertical drop-off right behind a berm. So that's why, you know, as we incorporate a gentler slope, you know, right now, that slope, so that's a 4-foot tall berm, that's a 4-foot tall berm. We marked it up in both locations. That's about a 3.5 to 1 slope. You can go even more gradual. That way, it's a little bit harder for illicit activities or someone to hide behind that berm. The other item that the police captains also shared with us were they encourage their patrol units to actually perform a lot more foot patrols. One, for better engagement with the community, but also for these park areas. We're also going to be working with them. They had another suggestion about incorporating some sort of drive-up surface where they can drive around this area on top of the berm and just make a quick loop. That way they see a full access into the park, you know, from 16th and William, just a quick little loop on top of the berm, like a little maintenance road almost on the flat area. So these were some of the suggestions that we received from 2 different police captains who are involved in the community and their concerns. So I just want to share those 2 aspects with you. Now, moving on to your third question. Go ahead.
And one other thing that they mentioned that we will be working with our designer to incorporate is lighting. You know, ambient lighting to provide safety, add to the safety and security for people in the parks, to deter people from hanging out in the parks that aren't supposed to be. And we'll have to coordinate that and balance that, because we want to make sure that we have the lighting for those surfaces without having it be distracting
or negatively impacting any of the neighborhood.
Impacting the surrounding homes.
It seems as though the berms are something you're very, very wedded to at this point. And I just want to say that I'd like you to give a cost comparison between passive barriers and berms, and tell us why Selma Olinder will have 1,750 feet of berms. I mean, passive barriers. We could put passive barriers from here all along 16th Street and across to William Street and have level access, perfect visibility, and what's wrong? Flood protection. We want the flood protection. And I understand that there is the sidewalk curves. Well, you know what? You don't have to follow the sidewalk. You can make straight lines. And, you know, why not that?
Thank you for that. Just to actually share some information, a preliminary cost difference between a vegetated berm about this size versus a passive barrier about that size. Per foot length, a passive barrier costs about $4,000 to $5,000 per foot. A berm is about $600 to $700 per foot to construct. So that is a big difference. So what we have to incorporate is it's going to be a balancing act of where we need to make sure that visibility, access can be maintained, and the berm is not a negative detractor to that. So that's the... So that's exactly why we're having the meetings, right? You know, right now we're not digging a shovel to tomorrow and digging up, right? This is why we want to incorporate and solicit your input to say, okay, we're in the 30% phase. We haven't even completed 30%. 30, 60, 90. These are the main the main milestones where we can solicit your input. We can share with you what we have incorporated after that and solicit further input. So thank you for the actual suggestion, and that's what we're going to be incorporating with our design engineer and see what we can do to address your concerns.
Oh, question right over here.
Yes, hi. I am the executive committee of Bark in the Park, and once a year we have one of the biggest events in the country for dogs. I don't know if everybody knows it, but I'm in charge of setup and
Closer to the mic.
I'm in charge of setup and takedown, and I have big trucks coming. I have big tents. We have fencing, and we have to go through the whole park with fence and heavy equipment, and I can't do it in one day through one entrance there, and we have vendors that drive through the back there. I need those, whatever they are, that go flat down. We need that. And Bark in the